Hello, everyone. Welcome to Three Bone Theater's YouTube channel. I'm Tiffany Bryant-Jackson. I am the education manager here at Three Bone, and we have a treat today. We have one of the actors taking on the epic show of the Lehman Trilogy, Kevin. Give us a moment and tell us a little bit about you, Kevin.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be introduced as a treat, especially on Halloween. So that's good. My name's Kevin Shimko. I'm an actor here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I also am currently the co-owner and artistic director of the Comedy Arts Theater of Charlotte, where we teach and perform improv and comedy shows. And yeah, I'm super excited to be in my first show with Three Bone Theaters and happy to be here today.
Welcome to the family. I'm curious, when you were reading audition notices and looking and you saw this come up, what attracted you for showing up at this audition?
I think honestly, one of the biggest things for me was I've been wanting to work with Three Bone for a while, and so I have kept an eye out on audition notices, and this one, yeah, it spoke to me. It mentioned things about playing multiple characters, uh, and I had heard about the play, and I was very excited by that. I heard a lot of good things. I know it got a lot of acclaim. So those are some of the things that stuck out to me. Working with Rebone, I think my experience as an improviser and in the world of comedy, the idea of playing multiple characters really appealed to me. And then, yeah, just the overall feedback I've heard about this play got me excited about it.
Fantastic. Now, speaking of many characters, that's not a lie. There are three of you in this show, and each of you is tasked with carrying quite a few people within you.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to tell everyone kind of your approach to that. You mentioned a little bit having the background in improv, and that helps. But tell me, like, script in hand, you know you have to tackle this. Walk me through your process from the beginning, working with your director, and really settling into those characters.
Yeah, I mean, when you first read the script, it's not even always clear when there's a character shift, right? Because the three main characters are just their name is throughout the entire script, so it's every once in a while you're like, oh, is this a new character here? So I mean, one of the first steps was going through it and really discovering where each character shift is, and David, the director, is very helpful on that. And also, I really appreciate David. Just kind of letting us go for a choice, right? Making big, bold choices with each character. So to me, that was kind of the first step. It's just like knowing when each character was, getting a little bit of a background on what the character is about, and then just being free to kind of improvise and make some big choices and then see what ultimately works. Also working closely with like Gretchen, our dialect coach, to make sure that the character has especially like the bigger characters have a foundation of strong dialect work, so that was another big way to get into each character for me personally, just like having the space to just make a bold move and try some things, physicalities, voices, just changing the face, little things like that. Since there aren't big costume changes, it's all about just those like either like subtle shifts or like real big physical or vocal shifts to get into it. And that's just been super fun.
Nice. I'm gonna hats off to you because the show is not short. It is
No.
one of the longer shows we've done at Fremont. So uh, consistently keeping up with where you are and who you are in that show is not an easy task. And it sounds like you all have been having a great time really leaning on each other and with the lead of your director really tackling this thing. I am
Yes.
curious, before you came to this audition and got your script, did you know much about, like, were you into not only, let's say, the Lehman family, but the trajectory of like capitalism and what happened in 2008? Was that on your radar at all?
I mean, just a sort of a general uh discomfort with the system that we're all in. I have student loans, and I'm not a big fan of the way the system currently works. So I don't know what an alternative to that is, but yeah, I mean, I have like light awareness of it. I mean, luckily, you know, I don't want to say luckily, but I mean, I was in college at the time of the 2008 financial crisis and whatnot, and so I don't think I had any real understanding of what this would mean long term at that time. I think my dad had to deal with, like, layoffs at the company at his company. So I mean, it definitely, I think it impacted all of us. But the trajectory of capitalism and whatnot, and like the story of the Lehman Brothers, was not something I had a whole lot of knowledge of outside of just, you know, having I lived in New York at that time, and so I remember the Occupy Wall Street movement. I remember this general, you know, shift in awareness that sort of popped up. So I'm aware of it, but not the inner workings of it. And so it was exciting to kind of learn more about it, learn more about the history of it through doing this play, and just yeah, I mean it's a very epic story. It's a very American story, and so
Mhm.
yeah, it was cool to learn a little bit more about it, despite the
Yeah.
fact that it had some really, there's some really terrible ramifications from the history
Yes.
of just how capitalism was born in this country. So yeah.
Right. But I think that's worth facing, and I know our audience will face some of that as they're watching the show. It is for some, as you mentioned, were maybe too young to quite be in it while it was happening or paying attention to the history, because sometimes we just live in the world as it is and we don't think
Yeah.
about how we got here.
Mm,
We're just existing, and for some that's really good for their mental health,
yeah.
but for others there's a desire to know, learn, and grow. And so I'm happy to know that this particular show has kind of given you some way to kind of look into it more
Yeah.
and see, wow, okay, that's the foundation of this thing, that's why we're where we're at.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on how you feel about, and you might have feelings, you might not, but I'm curious to know, as an actor who has a general not fun feeling about the capitalistic world we live in, you also happen to live in an epicenter of banking
Yeah.
here in Charlotte. Does this show make you reflect on the city we live in and the town we live in, how we I don't want to say cater to, but we are very dependent on the banking system in Charlotte,
Yeah.
who is here, who all of these new condos are going to, who is coming into Charlotte by the trove. So does this show make you think about that at all?
um yeah, for sure. I think you know uh, I think if you speak to any creative in this city, the conversation does always kind of come up about how it's difficult to be a creative in Charlotte. And I think a big reason for that is because of that catering to, I guess, banking and big business. It's a financial center, right? And I think that so the way that I think about it, I think is it just reminds me again about how difficult it is to foster and support creatives in the arts here in this town. And so, and I think those two things are connected, which is a shame. Um, Not trying to be a bummer on this morning, but yeah, it does make me think about it. It does. I
Yeah,
think the city oftentimes, like, if I'm being honest, it's like I don't. It's hard to make it. It's hard to feel like home when that's not what draws me to live in a place, right? I mean, I don't you see the city constantly growing, but it seems to be growing in a way that's catering towards an industry or a type of person that I don't identify with. And so yeah, I think this play does kind of, trigger some of those things in you. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And I don't necessarily think you're being a downer, or it's reality we live in, and I think it's worth investigating. And one of the things we want to make sure is art has the ability to tell stories, but
Mm,
stories live on past the moment you're telling it. So we have an audience coming in and they're learning this hundreds of years of history to show the lead up to just how we built this
yeah.
world, right? How it started with family and then it grew so big. that's worth seeing and worth taking back some thought into your own environment, where that is, what home looks like, where, you say it doesn't feel like home. I moved outside the Charlotte limits a couple of years ago, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. It actually made sense for me because of the world we lived in and the housing crisis, and being able to maintain life within this city wasn't feasible if I wanted to give my kids a quality of life.
Right.
And so that is all worth investigating when we're thinking about the structure we live under and how that affects everyone, whether we think it does or not, whether we're paying attention or not. So you're not a downer, you're just having moments of reflection, Kevin. That's all.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, just a moment of reflection. I'm curious, as you're walking through this show, let's pretend that you have not read the script, and let's pretend you're an audience member for the first time. What do you hope someone takes away from this show, watching it for the first time?
Yeah, on one hand, as trying to take that actor hat off, on one hand, I just want them to enjoy it, right? I just want people to like go support local theater and be like, damn, that was good. They were good in it, and it was fun to watch, and it was entertaining, and it reminds me why I want to go out and see more theater. I mean, that to me is at the heart of any show I want to be a part of. Is like, it just re-inspires people to want to come out and support the theater. That to me is the most important thing. As far as like particularly this play and messages from this play, I think it will be pretty challenging to not have some sort of reflection on just like the world we live in, and how this story is a reflection, I think, of all of our story, because one, it touches on elements of just like the human journey of like how to live in this world, how to what are our traditions, our religions, our backgrounds, all that stuff play into how we move throughout this world. And then also just back to the capitalism question is, how did we get to where we are? How did we get to a point where money sort of is the driving force behind everything that we do? And I think that there are certain moments in this play that really like touch on like, oh yeah, we live in this world where we are consumed by the idea of like, hey, I need to spend money to buy things, I need money to have a good life, all those sorts of things might come up. So yeah, I mean, with any play, I want people to sort of reflect on, how does this impact their life, and what sort of takeaways I want people to go home and Google things and Wikipedia things and like find out more about the start of not just the Lehmans, but just in general. Go back and look at the 2008 crisis and like what happened and how did that happen, and it's fascinating stuff. So I want people to be entertained, but also I want them to have their curiosity piqued a little bit, and see if they can go out and learn some more about this that they might not have known before.
Well, lucky for the audience, they get to do both. This is one heck of a show. So I'm saying to anyone who has not secured their tickets yet, go get them now. Show opens this weekend. You have 3 weekends. I know. You have 3 weekends. We are telling you now, you have no excuses. I do this every time we have a show, and I say, don't wait. And then when a night sells out, someone goes, what happened? I told you not to wait. It's quality theater. And so I want you to go and log on now. Go ahead and go to 3bonetheater.com.
Do it right now.
Go to the Lehman Trilogy.
What are you doing?
Book your tickets. You got time. Do it today. Kevin's co-signing. Come see Kevin and his cast mates in this incredible show. This is one of the bigger lifts we have done as 3Bone, but man, is it going to be wonderful. So I might be a little biased, but I won't lie about good theater, no matter how biased I am.
Excited to hopefully give people a good time. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. quality theater with lots to go home and reflect on, but you also get to go home and reflect on this fantastic cast that is locally grown. Well, not grown, but locally created. Everyone comes from different places, but they all have home here now.
Yeah.
And so that's another wonderful aspect of supporting this show. This is talent right in your backyard doing incredible work at a company right in your backyard. Thank you, Kevin, for taking some time to hang out with me this morning and to talk about the show. I am excited to see it in its entirety. You know, I've only had a snippet.
So am I, actually.
Reading. I've only had my snippet during the reading, so I am excited to see what happens when it's all put together. I walked into the space for the first time yesterday. I was like, wow. This is not the black box I am used to, but it is amazing. So I am excited. Thank you again for spending some time with us. Everyone else, what did I say? Go get your tickets now.
Right now.
3 weekends, no excuses.